Hi everyone, it's Gary Neville here. We've got some unbelievably exciting news on the Overlap. After our live show in Manchester last year, we've decided to take the Overlap on tour. On stage with me will be Roy Keane, Jamie Carragher, Josh Denzel and Kelly Cates. Tickets are available now. Make sure you come down and watch us, but remember, only if you like.
Let's get it on.
Welcome to an Overlap Fan Debate Extra. We've got a special episode post the weekend's games, and we've got Arsenal and Liverpool, who took part in an incredible game on Sunday, Manchester United and Manchester City, and we've got two esteemed journalists from The Athletic, David and Laurie. And we're going to start with you, Pippa, and I think we've given Arsenal a pretty rough ride over this last couple of years on this show. So you've got the floor. Go on, make your speech. Your opening speech is going to be a big one. Tell us where you're at.
I'm just happy that we don't have to do the talking and it's all done on the pitch, because you've literally grilled us, especially you, in the last year. The first ever fan debate show we did, you ripped into Arteta, Edu, the whole system and how Arsenal have been structured from the ground to the top floor. And you said we're not performing well, not buying enough players, and it's just not going to work for the next God knows how many years, and that we're miles apart from Manchester United.
I'll have to look back.
I remember
that
show.
Thank you.
Do you remember that? Was that not right at the time, though? Because two back-to-back.
Yeah, certain points of that are correct, of course.
Sorry, it could still be right.
Certain points of that are correct, of course, but to say you're miles apart from other clubs when this league is forever changing, of course, Man City are always at the top at the moment, but you can't compare us to other teams that are not on top form. Do you know what I mean?
I've always had a respect for Arsenal as a football club. There's no doubt. I mean, I think they're one of the great traditional clubs in this country. However, the last few years have been a struggle. I remember at the end of last season, me and Cara saying that we thought that it could be terminal for Mikel Arteta.
Where is Jamie, by the way? I didn't want to show up.
He's got Champions League commitments.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's got Champions League commitments. So we didn't invite him.
I thought it was the result that scared him off.
It's a bonus, to be fair.
He seems to have more fun when he's not with you.
I think he's just...
Who he does? Who's that with?
With all these other...
Champions League
What do you mean
mates.
with Keane
With
last
Thierry
night?
and that.
Oh, with Thierry and Micah. Yeah, but it's not serious punditry, that, is it?
We love it. We love it.
It's a bit jokey.
It's like YouTube stuff where we are.
It doesn't belong on television, that sort of stuff. Anyway, Pippa, come on. What has been the big change? Is it Jesus? Is it Zinchenko?
I think it has been some of these key signings, of course. Jesus has just been a menace. He hasn't obviously scored every single game. He's got goals on his tally already, but the way he drives at players, when he dribbles on...
You have strikers who score every single game.
Yeah, it is a bit.
You can have
Honestly, he's been a
Jesus.
delight to watch. Saliba, we've been waiting for him for a couple of seasons to see what he's about. I'm glad that they put him out on loan. He's come back in and he's pretty much completed every test. And then you've got Odegaard, who's coming in live and putting him through amazing assists. Saka's putting away penalties now for this. He's our penalty taker. And we've just got so many... I know the squad's not strong enough, as many people say. Everyone keeps saying it. One injury and it all goes tits up. But we've got... Sorry.
I like that. It's a northern saying.
But we've got players now that can put in a shift. Like Vieira looks good. That's got that goal against Brentford. If he comes on in the midfield, if we're stripped slightly, there's players that can come in and do a job. Marquinhos still looks raw, but he can do a job. Zinchenko now, what a signing to play with Tierney as well.
What about that? I mean, I was in the stadium for the first time on Sunday. I watched Arsenal away at Old Trafford and at Brentford, and obviously and played well at Old Trafford, even though they lost and they were brilliant at Brentford. But the atmosphere felt a little bit different on Sunday. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, this whole season's been one of the best atmospheres ever. Like, I've been going to games for so many years, but this season has been so different. Even the way the clubs are having all the have you seen all the flags and everything that's going on? We've got the anthem now before the games.
What is this anthem, by the way?
North London forever, whatever the weather, these streets are our own. Don't shake your head. Because right now the streets are our own.
When did this anthem get designed? Is it
just before the end of last season.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a great artist that come up with this. It's his song. Yeah, Louis Dunford, yeah. It's his song, and I think Arsenal fans just caught a hold of it on Twitter. Mikel saw it and said, yeah, do you know what? This could be it.
That?
Yeah, and everyone sings it before the game.
Finding something original.
Why are you taking digs?
Go on, David. Let's these two in tit for tat
here.
The opening point you made, Gary's previous criticism and you saying it was maybe a bit unfair. I think both points are probably true. Arsenal were quite a long way away at that point in time, and there were a lot of problems because there'd been so many changes behind the scenes, on and off the pitch, and they were not fulfilling the vision of Arteta and Edu at that point in time. They were quite a distance behind. But firstly, it shows us that we shouldn't form these judgments so instantly, and we should give these projects and these managers and people and players and executives time to develop, because Arsenal have turned it around and quite quickly, and they're now on a good path. And that owes a lot to a sort of long-term vision that really comes presumably from the owners and the executives that they give power to in terms of at the top level. Tim Lewis is there on behalf of the ownership. Vinay Venkatesham is the chief executive. They've got Richard Garlick alongside Edu supporting him. They've actually slimmed down. They expanded in the previous regime, and they've made it a bit more streamlined now. And they've given them time and faith and patience. And they backed Mikel Arteta even when there was huge speculation over his future. But everybody in that hierarchy was squarely behind him and not for wavering. And also at ownership level, when there was the backlash over the European Super League, which we talked about on here last time, when there was the challenge to the Kroenkes' ownership from Daniel Ek, supported by the likes of Thierry Henry, Dennis Bergkamp and Patrick Vieira, they wanted change at ownership level. That interest from Daniel Ek almost seems to have been the catalyst for the Arsenal owners, maybe a bit of a kick up the backside, a wake-up call, to really connect with the club, with the project, with the fan base, to put their hand in their pocket even more so, because they took full ownership, I think, in the summer of 2018. And the spending has been bigger since then. But this challenge to their authority, which was public, it was credible, the fans were behind it, seems to have changed the narrative. And now things really do seem to be moving in the right direction. And almost like the final piece in the jigsaw to get it lifted off, I'm not saying to get it finished, was the fans being behind them. And again, time and patience in a new stadium that they moved into in 2006. The executives there have learned and understood what makes the fans tick around.
But are the fans
anthems and
behind
flags.
them, or are they behind this new team and this new style of play? I mean, they are very different things. Are the fans still, are they behind the owners? I know they're quiet on the owners at the moment.
Yeah, we don't really talk. I feel like fans only talk about the owners
team,
when
innit?
things are going
Yeah.
wrong.
It's always the team.
It's not. No one's ever talking about the owners right now. Well, they're behind Arteta and they're behind the team. So the team's the main thing. What happened, the results.
And that's a great tribute to the recruitment, which by and large in recent years has been really strong.
Yeah.
They've had to make some tough decisions about players they've got rid of, paying off players, which they were heavily criticised for. But Arteta now has a nucleus of young players mainly, with a sprinkling of older players who are all in. There's nobody who's half in, half out. There are no bad eggs in that camp from what we can see. And whether or not it continues to go in this direction, they've given themselves a really good chance.
Yeah.
What is possible? And because I said after the game on Sunday, and it's not being. I want actually Arsenal to do well. I want Mikel Arteta to do well. I really do, because I think that he's a young manager. I think up against the managers he's up against, Conte, Pep, Klopp, Tuchel. Before obviously he got sacked. The animals, those guys to be up against. You know, you're talking about machines, and for a young manager to break into that, even though there's been a lot of investment, 360 million, I think Mikel Arteta spent to break into that sort of. That group of managers is just really difficult to do. That's why it didn't surprise me at the end of last season that Conte sort of did what he did because of his experience. Are you confident that, one, you're definitely going to get top four, that you potentially could challenge City for the league and be nearest to City, or do you still think, and that's why I still think that it's still to be evidenced yet, that post-World Cup, obviously things could happen, could change, season could change, momentum could change. Do you still feel there's a fear that you could go on a run, or do you think this is the real deal this time and you've got a team that can challenge the title and certainly get into top four?
It's so hard to answer because in the form that we're in now, everyone's buzzing. Everyone wants to say, yeah, we're definitely getting top four. Oh, we could challenge with City. Everyone wants to play City now while we're on form because that game's been postponed now. But it's like we cannot, or for me personally, I cannot call it because that World Cup, that break in play, God knows what's going to happen after that. The form could dip. We don't know if everyone's still going to be in, great conditions to play. But
Isn't
of
it great
course,
not to care though? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I just want to enjoy the game.
I've been saying about Arsenal is that I don't like Arsenal and particularly.
Why not?
Why is he sat here?
Well, because I was alive in '89. You know what I mean? So
fair enough.
But I empathise when fans are enjoying themselves watching football.
Enjoy the game.
And as much as we obviously took the mick out of Everton at the back end of last season, really, seeing them greeting coaches and getting behind the football club, we've had that for years and we've been a bit ridiculed for it at times. But most people would look at it and go, God, wow, there's this novel concept of going and enjoying the football.
I would agree with that. Going up to Newcastle, seeing the team, the fans are behind the team, going to Arsenal on Sunday. I remember being really harsh on Arsenal fans when, you remember the protest against Wenger?
Yeah.
I mean, it was toxic around that time. It was awful. On Sunday, just felt a million miles away from that. And I have to say, Arsenal's ground has never been really that sort of a hotbed of an atmosphere. But even Liverpool must have felt that on Sunday because the noise was absolutely off the scale.
I mean, that's the first time I've seen a Liverpool away fans come to the Emirates and be that quiet.
I agree.
And that's not just a dig at them. They were silent for the majority of the game.
Yeah, I agree.
Because we just outsung them.
I think one of the things that's, I think, helped Arteta is he's always seemed to have the time and the patience of the board. And from watching the documentary, I know they only kind of let you see what they want you to see. But it seemed like a collaborative effort. It didn't seem like Arteta was over here and the board are over here. So whenever a decision was being made or a bad result or something happened, it seemed like they'd all come together. And I think that must be really helpful for a manager to know that I've got these guys have got my back. If I have a few bad results, if I need to get rid of the captain who's on ridiculous wages, they're going to back me and do it. I think a lot of people can learn from that in terms of give a manager some time. You don't, eighth, fifth, like I'm not trying to take a dig, but you don't get that time normally, especially at a club like Arsenal. I think it's been
even what happened last season when everyone was, confident that Arsenal could have got top 4. I think a part of the fan base expected Arteta to get sacked because he didn't achieve what he was meant to achieve when he was that close. But they're always going to back him.
External factors that people spent years like sitting around the weekend waiting for Arsenal to do something to there's some content I can consume to add some spice to my weekend. Do you know what I mean? We've all seen, everyone's been guilty of it. And that documentary came out and I think everyone was rubbing their hands together. Oh, this is going to be the one. This is going to be the latest thing. And so many people come away going, actually quite like Arteta. Quite respect what he's doing.
I think you can't not like Arteta, I don't think, from a respect point of view as a person, the way in which he handles himself. Just want to talk about the game specifically on Sunday. I'll come on to you, Paul, in a minute, because the second half was alarming to me. And you know how much I've praised Liverpool under Klopp for the last 5-6 years in terms of the levels they've reached, been out off the scale. But I felt before the game, Arsenal fans were expecting to win.
Oh, of course.
And you've got a pretty poor record against Liverpool. So was it just a case of Liverpool being a little bit, obviously, below their best, and you just being on a high? Because massive expectation before the game.
Yeah, I just think Arsenal fans and the team just wanted to just go for it because Liverpool haven't been on their best form. And you're looking at that, Arsenal top of the league, only been knocked off once because of City played the day before. And you just think, just go for it because they've got players that are not playing to their highest standard. Trent's not playing to the highest standard, and he's one of their star players, quote unquote. Van Dijk not playing to high standard. They've got players that, of course, can trouble you, and we saw that in Nunes. And we saw that when they got their 2 goals. But just had to go for it.
The impressive thing for me about Arsenal is it's the manner of the victory. Obviously Liverpool kept equalising and so on.
But they just kept going.
Previous years, you expect Arsenal not to bottle as such, but definitely wilt a little bit.
Do you know what that's because? Do you know what that's because of? I mean, I don't mean to take credit, but I really think that is because of the fans. Because even every time we conceded, straight away the fans were just roaring Arsenal. Yeah,
confidence.
The equaliser for Liverpool in the second half, Arsenal didn't actually break stride in their performance. No. They were better before that goal for Liverpool, and they were better after it straight away. It's almost as if they just basically dusted themselves down, got back to the halfway line, and said, right, let's just carry on going at them. Yeah. I mean, Paul, I want to come on to you in terms of Liverpool. First half, there's no doubt, I thought, they're just flexing the muscles a little bit here. There's something back. But I want to get onto that second half, really. I was alarmed. Were you alarmed by what you saw?
Yeah, well,
I'm not talking about playing badly. I'm talking about actually the physical depression in their performance seemed alarming to me.
Well, it's alarming if you've not seen all the games Liverpool have played this season.
I haven't. I've seen 2, to be fair.
Well, exactly. And it's been a feature of Liverpool so far this campaign. They just don't look. There's an X factor, and that's been the most frustrating part of it because you watch football teams and you study a particular football team, and you get to a point where you can go, oh well, it'll be this guy. Or it's a slight a tweak here or there, and you can understand broadly how you'd fix it. But you look at Liverpool and you're like, there's something there that I don't think is totally understandable from the outside. There's something deeper to it, and then you start to get into reasons beyond the tactical and beyond injuries, and you're starting to get into psychological issues and that kind of thing, and that's what's most frustrating about the whole thing.
Psychological in what way? Well, the manager, the players?
My theory is last season, because you came so close to perfection. Imagine the impact of losing 2 that close.
So it's recognisable. So you can all I can do is call back on familiarities in the past. So I think back to 2001, 2002, Liverpool come second and their modus operandi is go more attacking, and they get the recruitment wrong that summer, and then they have a slow start, and then, you know, barring winning the League Cup that year, it's not quite right. Similarly, 2008, 2009, to come second, and how do you improve on second? Well, they go more attacking again, and it feels a little bit like we were waiting for that to happen after Kiev. We were waiting for it to happen after coming second in 2018-19. How would this side pick themselves up? Well, they won't, because Liverpool normally just become rubbish the season after coming so close. Like, you get so close to the sun, that kind of stuff, that you can't really recover from it. But they have done, and this one just feels like, I don't know, just as a fan, and, you know, and everything that went along with last season, it was exhausting covering Liverpool when you then add into all the absolute shit show that was the Champions League final on top of that, and the psychological damage that did to everyone who was present at that football game. And I couldn't tell you half the things that happened on the pitch because of everything that happened outside the ground that day. But to come so close to perfection, to immortality, and then normally you go, well, we finished second, well, we can go one better. Well, I'm sorry, no one's going to believe a word when you say we'll go one better and win the quadruple next season, because it doesn't happen.
I'd never thought of it like that, but I've said before, the best team that I ever played against in English football was the Arsenal 98 team that won the double, and then the year after, they could have won the double treble again. Hadn't been for, if you think about it, the penalty save in the semi-final, Villa Park, and then obviously they drew at Leeds, I think, and we ended up nicking the title. Yeah. But we won the treble that year. But it could easily have been Arsenal. We were that close, it was untrue. But then they never recovered from that. And I never thought, as you were talking then, I just thought Arsenal never really. Yeah. It took them 2 or 3 years, I think, to come back. The season after, they were a disaster. Yeah. And I'd never thought of it like that. But in terms of Liverpool, Jurgen Klopp's team, I said it on Sunday after the game, when they first came in, first 2 years for me was frantic. It wasn't really a polished team. It was just brilliant to watch, exciting. Then they added the sort of they smoothed it off a little bit, and then they became good at possession. So you had the pressing, you had the counter-attack, but you also had the possession. It seems to me now like they've got the possession, they like the slow game, but the frantic bit, the pressurising has gone. And that was everything for me of Jurgen Klopp's team. Has that gone? Why is that gone? How's it come back?
So I think I think a little bit of that psychological factor certainly plays a factor in that, when you've got to push and you've got to go hard, and and all of a sudden you're reaching for that tank, and it's like, well, this was here last time. Where have those reserves gone? And that opens up questions around the age category of the footballers and the profile of people at the club. It's undercut by injuries massively as well as that, because guys who James Milner, fantastic footballer, and he gets so maligned, and I think it's just because people like the new and the fashionable and the trendy or whatever in sport. He's a perfect person to have in and around the squad. I'm sure you've played along people who just, what they add off the pitch, you'll never see that from outside of the football club. But there's no way that he was planned to play as many minutes as he has done. He's just had to step into the breach because of.
What have you made of the recruitment, though? Obviously, I don't want Liverpool to succeed, so I'm glad. But from watching, like, I've always felt Klopp does more with less than, like, Pep, for example. Yeah. But I felt he's kind of had to do that. Yeah. Don't you feel the board should have backed him a little bit?
Yeah, 100%.
85 million or whatever it was on Darwin Núñez. Is that
Liverpool's business model? Make no mistake, Liverpool's business model is the envy of the vast majority of non-oil state-funded football clubs, because it has to be, because it's nice to know that it's possible that if you get your commercial side right and you get your recruitment right and you get the right people in the right position structurally, that you can go and challenge for the biggest honours. But they have run it at a point where it's been self-sustaining. I feel like it's quite an honourable way to run it. I'm quite bought into that. It fits the ethos, I think, of the city, the mentality of the fan base. But sometimes you do have to work at a little bit of a deficit every now and again, being a business owner. Sometimes you do have to take a little bit of a punt and say, we recognise that we need to go a little bit above and beyond, but we trust that it's going to be, we can make that back.
Signing Arthur felt like, like a Woodward signing last day of this. It felt really familiar to me, like, oh my God, what are they doing?
Laurie, I'm going to bring you in. The theory I had after the game, but I take Paul's point around the emotion of last season, just catching up with them and then not having anything in the tank this season. I get that, actually. I can look back upon moments where that's happened. But is there an element of that Jurgen Klopp has just been punching well above his weight for so long? When you look at the net spend of all the other teams, and that what he's been achieving is just off the scale to be competing with that City team, to be actually where they
They
are.
have spent money. Let's not pretend they haven't spent money.
No, but the net spend compared to the other clubs is like...
And the wages are pretty high as well.
But the net spend, in terms of what they're trying to do, they're always trying to balance that.
I agree, but I'm just saying...
You're right, they've got a high wage bill,
know.
but the other clubs have spent more money. You see what Chelsea
But you
done.
spend what you're in.
What Chelsea have done this summer, what United have done, what City have done in terms of not money, but the players they've brought in, what Arsenal have spent. Is it a case of now it's just catching up with them and actually this was always going to come, or is it a case of pointing towards the point that Paul makes?
I think there's certainly elements of that. Clearly, Liverpool, I think, have always punched above what they've been able to produce in the bank balances. I think they've also sold really well. That's something that clearly Manchester United haven't done historically, and so therefore their net spend is therefore that much better. I do wonder if you have a manager, Jurgen Klopp, who's worked so intensely for such a long period of time, is there that period
he
where
looks a bit tired, doesn't he?
a little bit.
Yeah.
My mind boggles at how much a manager must have to do behind the scenes to motivate players time after time. They've had hits, haven't they? I mean, 3 Champions League finals and 2 defeats. It's a big, sort of dip to try and bring people back up from, let alone the title chases that they've not quite succeeded against the City team that are obviously just out of this world. So I sort of wonder if all those things are combining. Plus the medical side of things, the injuries is coming back again. We've had this before when Jurgen Klopp first joined and the kind of muscle injuries that players were getting. Is that all harmonious behind the scenes there? That's kind of one area that I would question a little bit. But yeah, I think ultimately if you look at how much he's spent and what he's actually succeeded at, I think he's been punching well above his weight.
I think that's a fascinating point on Klopp and his condition, or call it what you like. He's just signed a new contract, so he's clearly up for rebuilding this project or taking it on to a new phase. But at the same time, somebody who was integral to that project, Michael Edwards, decided that it was time for him to go. Maybe he felt it was the end of his cycle, or
he
maybe...
only left a few weeks ago, didn't he? Or about a month or so.
He
had 2 years' notice.
He announced a year ago, didn't he?
He announced a year ago, but he formally left, I think, at the end of the transfer window, and that completed the handover to Julian Ward, who was his assistant. And the way Liverpool have operated in recent years, and let's be clear, they've been the model for many clubs. Most pertinently, I think Arsenal, who also lost the Europa League final. Liverpool stuck by Klopp, Arsenal changed from Unai Emery to Mikel Arteta. But they followed similar paths, and Arsenal trying to get the recruitment right in the way that Liverpool have done really impressively when you saw the likes of Jota come in out of the blue, Luis Diaz recently. But there was a bit of a difference in that Darwin Núñez changed what Liverpool had been doing for so long. We could name their team lineup in recent years just like that. Darwin Núñez has to become the focal point of that attack at that price. And in his home debut, he was sent off. 3-game ban. You go back to the Roberto Firmino system and style. Meanwhile, Mo Salah has signed his new contract and his form has not been anywhere near the level it was before. Then you bring in the performance levels of people who've talked about Van Dijk and Alexander-Arnold and others. And the injury situation that Laurie points to, I think, is a really big story. They don't, at the time of recording this, have a club doctor. I think they're interviewing for that position. Andreas Schlumberger, who's a trusted medic of Jurgen Klopp from their time together in Germany, and he was with the Germany national team, has come in and he's gained a lot of power and authority, and it wouldn't surprise you if he starts to shape a medical department there. But day by day, even just when we started recording this, we're hearing about an injury to Joel Matip. That comes off the back of whether by accident or muscular.
But he's injured a lot, Matip, isn't he?
Matip has been injured a lot, and they had the season when the defence was ravaged when City won the title back. You've had the unfortunate injury to Trent Alexander-Arnold, which hopefully isn't as bad as feared. Diaz has got an injury that sounds like it's going to keep him out until the new year. All across this team, it's being ravaged by physical problems. And I think a lot of people were saying it's the ideal situation for Julian Ward to take on from Michael Edwards. But I think it's starting to look pretty hazardous for them now. And you mentioned the spend. You know, sometimes you have to go a little bit beyond. Well, Arsenal have spent a little bit beyond their means. The owners, whether it be by loan or equity, have dipped into their pockets. And Arsenal have spent very heavily, as Gary said. Liverpool haven't been so much recently, and it's maybe manifesting.
The difficult situation Liverpool have had, I think, in the spend department is, in my life and following the club, Liverpool have never had to get to the top and maintain the top. You know, I came into being a Liverpool fan at the tail end of the 80s, so, you know, you leading toward the 90s and then the beginning of a 30-year wait for the title and what have you. I think the build's easier, the climb's easier because, you know, you're getting buy-in, it's exciting, you can accept losing a few games here because you're not a complete project. And this is the one thing I think is what Jurgen Klopp's maybe got his eyes on. But looking at what Ferguson did, because people often look at Ferguson as an entirety and go, how many years he was there. He didn't just sign that contract in the first time. He had to go through and he had to build the teams, and that's the big challenge. Like Kenny Dalglish obviously couldn't stick around for that in 1990. Obviously, psychological factors after Hillsborough are a big part of that, and no Liverpool manager since has had to do that. And I don't think the model what's been left, Michael Edwards as well, his playbook is not a playbook of how do you continue to refresh a squad and keep it at the top. Jurgen Klopp hasn't really had to do that either before. It's a new challenge, and that's where it's difficult.
Pep's done that at City. Think about those great players that he had.
Yeah.
You know, companies and people like that have sort of, if you like, Aguero's. They have manipulated that squad and massaged it and moved it on, like Ferguson would do over many, many years. Sir Alex Ferguson.
But look what City have done. They've done it. I mean, again, it comes back to a spend thing of. He had that core nucleus of it, so he didn't need to spend that money early doors. But now what they do, they'll turn around, they're buying superstars now, which is something they've never really done.
I want to ask you about Jurgen Klopp a question, because I mean, Liverpool is an emotional city, it has passion, it's built on that. It's his great strength, but Jurgen Klopp's an emotional and passionate manager. Are you concerned that he is, and it's been mentioned, I don't think I am in terms, I don't think I'm saying it, but I'm asking you the question, on being there every single, are you feeling that there could be a moment whereby he thinks, I've taken this as far as I can, and actually, you know, it's been the great relationship, it's a great marriage. We just need to shake hands whilst it's good. Or do you think he's going to be there in 2, 3, 4 years and see this through?
I think he will be, honestly. I mean, and again, you can never say, because look, if Liverpool lose 20 games back to back, then there'll be different conversations to be had, of course.
Oh, we'll be having them, don't worry.
Oh, absolutely, sure, yeah, absolutely. I look forward to champagne cork and photos galore. No, he strikes me. People say, look, he looks tired, he looks whatever. He looks pissed off because he's not winning football matches. Yeah. And again, being an emotional person, you have that. How are you meant to come out and be all sweetness and light when your team have just performed like idiots in key moments?
He does look tired, though. He really does look tired.
Yeah, but then again, I look tired over the last couple of years.
Do you think the Sadio Mane thing was a shock to him?
It was a strange one, that wasn't it? It was a strange one.
That seems like a big loss, doesn't it? It's brilliant.
It just came out the blue to me. I mean, it just came out the blue.
I got told that the Núñez thing was very much related to that, whereby, you know, he was available. People were talking about him at like 40, 50 million euro in sort of April time. You know, United were obviously sort of having talks with his people. And then ultimately it comes to, 100 million euro, I think, ultimately.
I suspect that Diaz stuff spoke to me that they had a clear understanding that Mane was on the way, because...
Do you think that's for him rather than for
Exactly, because everyone's been talking about this Núñez as Mane's replacement, and nominally, because Mane finished the season centre forward, but that's because Jota was injured, and that's because Firmino had fitness issues all season long. They made it, and Mane's, let's be honest, his output from the left-hand side had been diminished for a couple of seasons. We'd gotten the best we were ever going to get out of Sadio Mane. The Diaz signing spoke to me anyway of, well, let's add some verve onto the left wing again.
The Diaz one is a great example of Liverpool's recruitment staff being really smart, because Spurs had set it all up, and then at the very end, you know, Liverpool nip in and get him for the price that they'd agreed. And I think there was sort of suggestions that John W. Henry sort of congratulated his recruitment staff. Daniel Levy was very disappointed and kind of vocalised that to people, and John W. Henry sort of saw it the other way. But I thought that the Núñez one was really interesting just because it is above what Liverpool have spent on a single player. And was that something that Klopp really pushed for because he'd seen him in the flesh and really liked him?
I would say he signs everything off, Klopp at Liverpool. He would definitely sign that
more than... So if the recruitment staff have sort of slight reservations about the value in terms of what their player they're going after, does Klopp's authority therefore, right, no, we are going to go and spend...
I think he would have the power to be able to push that through.
I feel like David's got some insight in this.
No, I wanted to pick up on Gary's point about Klopp's authority in that. I don't think we doubt the strength of his voice, but he made pretty clear his determination to sign a midfielder in the summer. He wanted Tchouaméni from Monaco. And what do you think on whether Artur Melo was his signing on deadline day? There's heavy speculation that he was carrying some physical problems with him. He's now undergoing surgery, having barely played for Liverpool at all. That doesn't strike me as being a Klopp signing. No,
I would agree with that. I mean, I watched Liverpool Sunday. I watched them at Old Trafford. Watched them obviously on Sunday. And people talk about the fact that Mane's missing, but actually Diaz, I thought Jota and Núñez in particular, I thought were pretty decent. They were a real threat. The actual most worrying performance for me out of Liverpool front four is the world star, the one that's been nearest to winning all the top awards. It was Mo Salah. What is that? Just a case of bad form? Is it a case of signing the contract? And what is it? A worry to you?
Yeah, to add Salah along the list of just weird issues that Liverpool have got to contend with at the moment. I watched Salah play. Like, look at his touch. It's amazing. There's nothing wrong with him doesn't look like anything physically wrong with him. He looks like he's actually enjoying himself. You see him smile on the pitch. He doesn't have no bad posture, body language issues there. I think he's too far from the goal. I think that's an issue. He's always had a bit of chalk on his boots at times. Liverpool have used him a lot. They've had Henderson playing underlapping things. They were moving towards Harvey Elliott, getting a little bit closer to the 18-yard box as well. He's not been the same since African Cup of Nations. His goal return has been nothing like the level it was prior to Christmas.
Those runs that he used to make all the time, that run, him and Mane made it, to be fair. I didn't see that on Sunday at all.
No, and I think, and again, whether it's Liverpool are gearing up towards something that we've just not been able to see because of Nunes' suspensions and injuries and all those kind of things, we don't kind of know. But it's a real head scratcher, because there's your main man, there's your main goal source over the last 5 seasons. And he just looks like he's turned back to a right midfielder almost. He's playing a secondary role, and his creativity's there. He's playing some great passes. The interplay there, showing some positive signs of him in Nunes. It's very early doors. It's just, when you're looking at where's the most Salah everyone has in their FPL team, who's guaranteed points every week, is what people say to me, and that's right. He's not that this season so far, and I honestly don't know, other than something, some sort of tactical shift that just gets him closer to the 18.
Like Marvin Hagler said, he's got them silk sheets now, new contract. Don't have to work as hard no more.
Well, you didn't see that on Sunday because of Martinelli, mainly. Martinelli hooked off that whole right side, and Tomiyasu.
Well, Tomiyasu playing as an inverted full-back, right-footed full-back. He's got that height as well, which cut out the diagonal ball over to Mo Salah. He did a great job on him.
You mentioned Salah. While we've been recording this, there are reports that the relationship between Kylian Mbappe and PSG is broken.
Wow.
And
he ain't going to Liverpool and Mbappe.
The suggestion being that they would do business for him, but any club other than Real Madrid after what's gone before. And suggestions, not from me, but reports in France that Liverpool might be a destination.
We've heard of that
sort of mutual admiration before, but is that sort of thing realistic?
It's to watch the Eurovision Song Contest.
He's a big fan, He's the only one who can afford the hotel in Liverpool for the Eurovision.
Does he want Michael Edwards' job? Who was coming in for?
Well, no, I mean, there's been a running joke in the Liverpool fan base for the last 3 years. It was like Mbappe 2020, Mbappe 2021, Mbappe 2022. No, but again, it's the...
You got it in 23 then?
Well, absolutely, we got there eventually. But no, it's the wage. I can't imagine a world where Liverpool, having just played hardball with Mo Salah for 2 years, to get him to a reasonable thing they could rubber stamp. The idea that Kylian Mbappe would come in is I mean, by all means, go for it.
Speculate all you like. It sounds good, doesn't it?
Go wild.
And as Carol always says to me, when we're signing Bellingham, that's one that Liverpool, I think, would be keen to be in the frame for in 2023. But he's going to have...
Bellingham doesn't look like one that could happen.
But on a serious note, though, if you're Liverpool's owners now, and let's say this season continues in the sort of manner that it has done so far, and they finish outside the Champions League, Jurgen Klopp is going to want that type of, I'm not saying it's Mbappe, but Bellingham, Mbappe. He's going to want that type of statement from the owners and board, I suspect. Why wouldn't they? I mean,
Man City have not changed the game, have they? But they've changed their game.
Yeah.
And all the Erling Haaland stuff, and you read between the lines of that deal and what's being spent on that, and you get the return. No City fan on earth.
We should have played double.
No, exactly. No City fan on earth going to sit back and complain at what's being paid when the guy scored a goal a game. That might be something where Liverpool's owners do look around and go, well, we've tried this for a while. And if people talk about Liverpool's owners, and there's a lot of negativity around them, particularly online. But for them, it's the value of the portfolio, and it's about they don't want Liverpool to not be successful because it shrinks the value of their portfolio, not just Liverpool Football Club. And there might come a point where you'd hope where they go, well, if it's a difference between us falling back into the pack and then you're going into the scrap for Champions League and then you can't have certainty around that, that's going to impact the commercial deals and that's going to impact the bottom line of the football club. They might be in a position where they go, well, if that's how the game's played now, we've been sensible for all this point, maybe we do have to go. And if you're going to go, then you go for someone who's going to be, a la Erling Haaland, go for a sure thing. Go and get someone who you're going to get 10 years of being the best player on the planet.
Let's wrap Arsenal and Liverpool up. and I want a prediction of where you think both clubs are going to finish from every single person.
I wanted to ask you this.
What we like to do, to be fair, is to make sure that we can sort of come back and visit these predictions at the end of the seasons. They usually harm me badly, so I'm happy to get. So, Dave, starting with you, Liverpool, where they're going to finish? Arsenal, where they're going to finish?
I think Liverpool look like they'll finish just outside the top 4. They've got so much quality in them to challenge for it, so you can't discount that. But maybe the way things are looking, a 5th place finish. And Arsenal, they should finish within the top 4 the way things are going. They may even do a little bit of business in January, let's see, to help them kick on, because the owners seem committed to that. Whether they can push Manchester City all the way is going to be a massive ask. I'd say a top 4 finish for Arsenal, maybe just outside for Liverpool.
Listen, if we're extrapolating the points out so far, Liverpool are going to finish 10th in the season. Look, we're in danger of being this hope rather than expectation thing, and I've been that Liverpool fan for most of my Liverpool fandom, to be fair. If you're going to trust a manager and a team to get it right, it's these ones. I think they'll finish in the top 4, but I've got a sneaky feeling Champions League final in Istanbul again at the end of the season. You know, 4th and a European Cup.
What, Liverpool, yeah?
That'd be a disaster. So you think they will finish in the top 4?
Yeah.
And Arsenal?
I think Arsenal finish in the top 4 as well. 2nd or 3rd.
Okay. Pippa?
Interesting. I mean, if I'm going on current form, I have to say Liverpool outside top 4. I think just 5th. Arsenal, I want to be ambitious, but not too ambitious. I'll say 2nd. You're laughing.
That's like...
When you said I want to be ambitious, but I thought you were going to say 3rd or 4th.
I did,
I'll be honest.
but 2nd, I'm moving on. Adam, where are these 2 clubs on?
I think
not from
Liverpool 5th, 6th. I think they'll have a rally at the end of quarter
Yeah,
past
they will.
3. I think Arsenal will get top 4. I think because of the way Chelsea and Liverpool are at the moment, I think they look like the most settled team.
Yeah.
Well, I should know,
Unfortunately.
given watching Liverpool for the challenge, I can't see them not having a good run at some point. I think they're going to make top 4 as well.
But Derby,
I just think they will do. I can't see them getting it wrong for that long.
Right.
You know, I just think the alternative.
So you think Liverpool will get into top 4?
Yes, and I think probably
Liverpool?
Arsenal.
Sorry.
Arsenal, yeah, 2nd or 3rd. Probably 3rd, I reckon. It depends what Chelsea do. Chelsea are the ones for me, and Spurs.
But are these 2 finishing in the top 4 for you?
Yes, I reckon so, yeah.
Laurie?
I like how you come to me last because I hate predictions.
So do I. That's why I've missed myself out.
No, you have to answer.
I've seen your latest Instagram.
I'll do it at the end.
Liverpool, I mean, a couple of seasons ago, didn't they, where we thought no chance they're going to make top 4, and then they somehow cobbled it together with that defence.
They made top 4 with Nat Phillips and Reece Williams.
I mean, I was at that game at Old Trafford, and you're thinking, oh, this is United, putting them out of it altogether, and then they come back and win 4-2. So, never.
Had an informed Mane,
They did
Salah though.
informed Salah, yeah. The Salah thing, if he can click, I think they'll finish top 4. But if he keeps going like this way, sort of drifting a little bit, I don't think they make top 4.
I don't think it's a middle ground. I think it's like top 4 or 8th. That's something like that.
What?
I honestly think it's like
Is that
either getting really right or really struggle. I think
Yeah,
I can't see
it's
it.
the injuries as well now. As well.
Yeah.
And I do think Arsenal are in a good way. He seems to have them collective, and so I think they'll finish top 4. But there's then who drops out.
Exactly.
That's my
Remember
thing.
when they were talking about these like being the greatest team ever? And all?
Yeah. So I'm going to go...
won every trophy in the last 3.5 years.
I think
Every
Arsenal
trophy.
will finish 4th and 5th.
We can't finish in two. We can't finish in 2
I
places.
don't know which one will finish where.
That's a good way to predict.
I mean, a couple of months ago you said we wouldn't be in the top 4. So.
I don't... Jocelyn, I might still hang with it.
Okay.
Just to sort of fizz it up a little bit, you know what I mean? Just to attract the sort of noise that I like on my feed every day, you know what I mean? Just Thursday morning I'll wake up
decisions aren't
and you know what I mean?
Gary Trowell.
Do you know something? I think, I look at Tottenham, I look at Chelsea, I look at United, City, Liverpool could come. It's still a big job for Arsenal. There's no doubt at the moment.
What do you see when you look at United?
Something that isn't spectacular at the moment, but I think this season's a marathon more than most, and momentum will swing back and forward. I mean, the Queen's passing, the World Cup, it's just been disrupted. It's nothing's really got started properly yet, and I just feel that coming back from the World Cup could be completely different. I always used to remember.
Let's just start the season.
No,
then.
I always used to
Let's just
remember
start
the Champions League.
Don't avoid it.
When the Champions League finished in December and the knockout phase wasn't until sometimes March or end of February, and used the favourites in December, very rarely won it in March. So for me, that's what I would say at this moment in time. So I'll go. I don't think Liverpool will finish in the top 4. I'll go Liverpool outside the top 4, but Arsenal could still be outside the top 4 as well for me. But I'm going to put you in just for now, just to keep you all happy.
Oh yeah, just for this
Right,
month.
let's move on to the Manchester clubs and the phenomenon at this moment in time that is Manchester City. And to be fair, City have been phenomenal for I don't know, many years now.
Yeah.
But I got a little bit bored of watching City. and that's in a respectful way, because it just seemed to be the same every single week. But then you've put this, been called an animal, a robot, a machine, a beast, whatever you want to call him, this superhuman individual up front that just seems to me to just change the game completely. And I have to say that going to City, watching him is it's not a pleasure from a point of view of inside, but you just cannot help but think, wow, what is that?
It's changed. The mood around the stadium, amongst the fans, I'm seeing new faces at the ground, everywhere you are. It's changed. There's a superstar at City on another level that we've just not had before. We've been close to it. People like Aguero, Silva, Yaya, even Pep to an extent, even De Bruyne. But Erling's a different level. He's a different level. He's
It's
genuinely...
interesting you say that. I actually thought that when I went to interview him last week, and then I watched the game against United, and I thought, this will draw new fans to City.
I was working the Derby game with Man City. I do a lot of their stuff on their shows and on their own YouTube content. And I was sat there after the show doing one of the kind of like match reaction, obviously buzzing and whatever. But I kind of was looking over and could see Erling Haaland being interviewed. I noticed this guy run over and get a picture of him. I was like, what's he doing? Then I noticed him run across the pitch, get chased by the stewards and run back into the United end. Like some guy had come to the game just to sneak on the pitch 10 minutes
What's going on?
It's not United.
Either way, it was Housen actually. Yeah. Just to get a photo with Haaland though, but that you never saw that ever. Like whatever it is, he is genuinely he's changed what I thought was
probably
normal. But he is a superstar, and the kids want to be Haaland. They do, and I wouldn't be surprised. You see kids now wearing headbands and all that kind of stuff because Grealish and Haaland and whatever, and it is weird. And I've got to the point now where I just laugh every time he scores, and I'm not used to that.
I haven't had this since the Gallagher brothers in the 90s.
But
they were running around in Celtic.
The Neville brothers were the big brothers in the 90s.
Brightwell brothers, that's it. Oh, yeah. But no, genuinely, he's different to what we've been used to. And look, City, I can admit that, since the takeover, we've not had someone who is the global icon. United, of course, have had it, But it feels different. It just does feel different. And I think the players know it. I think Pep knows it. He said he gets 50 questions in the press conference and 45 are about Haaland, and that's what happens when you get someone like a Ronaldo or a Messi. And Haaland is on that Mbappe level as well, the next ones. And
just something on goals. Is it sustainable, the 40% shot conversion? He actually is on track for 67 goals.
Honestly, he was always averaging a goal a game beforehand. And my logic was, look at all the chances that people have wasted from Kevin De Bruyne over the past few years, and it was honestly silly at times. I know City were good, but I remember when we were doing the season preview overlap with you guys, and we were chatting to, Jamie was saying, look, it's not going to change the points total, but I said, it's not about that. He's going to kill off games after half an hour as opposed to 80 minutes and waiting for a potential second or whatever. And he has changed it, and I don't see any reason why it'll slow down because he's done it at every single level. He's Norway, Salzburg, Dortmund, the Champions League as a teenager. Everything about his game is just pure goals, and I think we're maybe people hoping for him to drop off, but it doesn't seem to ally to who he is as a person. Some people just score goals, and if you give him chances, his shot conversion rate's about 60% or something. It's just silly.
In terms of, obviously, we're not at the business end of the season, but it will come down to, it's a fact it will come down to, his goals will obviously be potentially unbelievable, but it will come down to City winning the league and winning the Champions League as to whether it's a success. That it is going to come down to that in the end.
Yeah, and I think I don't think this is fair. I've always
that's what
defended.
He's been for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course it is. And you look at the reason maybe that we went out last season, the first leg against Real Madrid, and we wasted about a ton of chances. It ended up where it should have been about 6-1 or something like that. But we missed so many chances that we gave Real just enough hope to turn it around, which they do. But that's probably a different type that Haaland's playing because he is that good, and he does. He does finish those chances like that. But I also do believe as well that, he's making those around him more confident. There's an element of he's got this orbit to him and magnetism about his game. You see in space, you look at the game at the weekend and Mahrez and Foden had so much space, but they're taking chances that maybe last season they would have missed because I always felt the problem with people when we didn't have Aguero in the false nine is that you're asking midfielders to be the goal scorer, and that's fine when you've got an Aguero to fall back on because the pressure's not on you. You can do your job, and it doesn't matter if Phil Foden or Sterling missed a chance because Sergio's going to bag one anyway. But for a long time it was on them, and we were seeing players, even though I know we won the league, but we were still seeing Foden and Jesus and whatever, and Sterling. Snap at kind of chances or snatch at chances that normally they probably would have buried. And we're seeing that this season already. Foden is banging form, scoring loads of goals, and he looks confident and he looks secure in the knowledge that he's got this guy alongside him that changes things. So it's a very lucky time to be a Man City fan. It always has been, but even more so right now.
Were you in the stadium week last Sunday?
No, I didn't go to the...
I was. It was wonderful.
Yeah, look, to be honest with you, I was in the stadium and it was like a what the...
It
was crazy.
It didn't feel as bad. You know, last year when we lost against them and it was just like, oh my God, there's no hope here. It felt like we're just witnessing a freak. It was like when R9 came to Old Trafford. I think R9's the greatest, but when it was like, whoa.
Yeah, what was that?
I remember that game.
I agree.
Patrick.
He is a cheat, to be honest. A massive cheat, scoring too many goals. Now, it's ridiculous. I don't know how he does it, and he not only does he score great goals and goals where his feet are in the air, all those kind of things. He scored 2 goals the other day, and they were just open goal tap-ins, and it's like the anticipation to get there before the defender and his movement. I think he's incredible. The thing that we heard about Mbappe there, and him not being allowed to be sold to Real Madrid, just filled me with joy because it makes me think, go on, Real. Do the deed and save us all, because that's the only way out of this.
Well, Paul, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Paul Belushi said
the only way out of this.
He's got a release clause.
200 million euros, isn't it, in 2024?
So obviously, it's a lot of money, but as we've seen...
How much is it?
200 million in 2024.
The release clause?
Abroad, though, not the Premier League.
Yeah, not the Premier League.
Allegedly, but
then it decreases as the years go on.
But to be honest, I mean, there's a relative win-win there for City. You know, like if we sell him for 200 million euros, it'd be naff. But he's gone abroad and we've made loads of money, scored loads of goals, and it's like.
Well, that was the thing that
Alvarez, so that'll do.
Stop United from apparently going for him, or maybe he would have already chosen Borussia Dortmund. But you know, United rejected the idea of a release clause. Would you have been happy if United had done a release clause where it would have got 2-3 years out of him, if that's what City have done? And maybe they think, OK, as it goes on, he'll actually want to stay at Man City because he likes it.
It's not ideal, but you'd have to say yes, Manchester United would have to take that because we're only getting a couple of years out of Ronaldo. There's a number of players in the last 5-6... Cavani we got a year or so out of. Igala. We've signed many strikers that we're only getting a year or so out of. So if United to say you're going to get 2-3 years out of one of the best, you'd absolutely... Unfortunately, where... I understand the historic principle and the sort of tradition of United thinking we're not going to accept a release clause, but at the position they're in now, to have Haaland for 3 years or Mbappe for 2 years, of course you'd have to...
That's the world that you're in currently. If a player wants to go Real Madrid, you're not stopping him anyway.
No. Yeah, and does that not just underline the elite level of City's operation and recruitment and the confidence that they've got in their own decisions, that they can bring somebody in and they're humble enough to say, well, he may move in a few years. He's got the mechanism and that's helped us to attract him to our club. But as Laurie says, he may be happy enough when we get to that point that he signs a new contract or stays, or maybe he does go and City have got themselves an amazing player for a couple of years and they've managed to win the Champions League and they've got the courage of their convictions to do that at the recruitment phase.
Well, I think it's smart, personally. I do think it is smart, and I think a lot of people have gone, why have you let Jesus and Sterling go to this club and that club rivals? But I do think there's an intelligence in the way that City handle their outgoings, which they treat players like adults, and they say, if you want to be here, you know, you can be here. If you want to go, you can go, but at least let it make business sense for us. But I do think if you were a player looking to come to Manchester City, like Haaland has done or whatever, you would trust them because they've publicly shown that they are willing to let players go if they want to go.
Well,
so their career is still...
Pep could have gone, but he's chosen to stay because there's no other project that he looks at in the whole of European football.
I think it's tempting as a
He's
player,
out of contract
as a coach
next
or
summer.
whatever. We don't talk about that, you know, it's too terrifying.
Yeah, but if you're Pep Guardiola and you're I suspect that Manchester may not be the best place in the world for him to live.
He travels back to Barcelona a lot.
I'm sure he does. I'm sure that he'd love to live in sort of a different place in Europe and Barcelona or other place like that. But if he looks at a football project and thinks, where am I going to get this now in Europe? He isn't getting that anywhere.
No.
To build that team he's got at City with that player up front that he's got, that would take him 2, 3, 4, 5. He might never do it, like at Bayern Munich. That team he's got now, if that doesn't win the Champions League this year, I mean, where's he going to get that again? So that's why, I mean, Haaland the same. Is he looking at Real Madrid and thinking, I want that? Or
he might do, but you forget as well, when he obviously decided maybe one day I want Real Madrid, and his dad apparently said in documentary, it's not just Madrid, he wants to play in all the major leagues at some point. But you say that when you're 20 years old, and look, I'm sure at some point most footballers think, I'll play here and play there, but you grow up, you meet a partner, you settle down or whatever, and you win the Champions League or something like that, I don't know. But either way, what you think at 25 is not the same as what you think at 22. He might go, but there's a very good chance your son might stay because you get settled, don't you? You know, you get comfortable where you are. You might have a kid or whatever, and you think...
Nice light rain.
You might
I really like rain.
Norway, you know. Like, and also, to be honest as well, like Manchester's pretty chill. You're allowed to be a superstar and kind of crack on, aren't you?
We saw
him bopping down the street.
We thought that Sergio Aguero was going to leave City pretty much every year after he joined, and he stayed until
quite
City
homely
had
club, you know. And I know people.
Haaland does feel like he's got a checklist he wants to tick.
100%. Yeah, Haaland feels like he's got it all mapped out. I mean, it's crazy how young he's been. I guess maybe it's having the footballer father and linking up with Mino Raiola so soon in his career and having it all planned. It's a very professional, very adult, grown-up way to go about things. And if City have got the benefit of that for a couple of years, then I'm sure they'll be great.
You know what you say? It's better to love the loss than never love the toll. So if Erling goes, so be it.
It does speak to the quest for the Champions League, though, doesn't it? About saying that's what it's a Hail Mary, I think, for the European Cup. Yeah. It's like, it means you get to keep Pep round for a little bit longer. Maybe he does another year or whatever. Yeah. If he gets it this season, who knows? Maybe he goes, well, that's me. I've accomplished what I want to accomplish. Fingers crossed. But Manchester City are a club set up to win the European Cup. They are. You go to that stadium, look at the expansion, and we joke about not being able to fill the seats. But when you win a European Cup, you fill those seats. Yeah. You acquire new fans. You grow your fan base because it does. I know Liverpool fans who started supporting them in 2007. What was the first game you watched? Champions League final, Athens. We lost that one, but they watched Liverpool play in the Champions League final and went, I like that. And that's for me. And that's what happens is City are prepared for that. And it looks like they've gone, 2 or 3 years on Erling Haaland. He'll be the thing to do it. If it goes wrong, then we can
on that
move
fan
on.
thing, obviously everyone jokes about it. And largely City do sell out, but there was the odd game, maybe a dead rubber, against a lower team where there might be 1,000 seats or whatever. That's not happening this season, by the way. And that's the Haaland effect once again. Every game's been a sellout. And I think that is this superstar effect, isn't it?
It is a point that people joke about, but actually when you live in this area like I do, within the schools, the children, you do see more and more genuine City fans, shirts,
it's crazy.
Conversations. And this is actually taking it to a new level. I saw some statistic about shirt sales for City recently compared to previous seasons, and it's gone through the roof. I also don't think I can remember a player, I know it's early days, who has created such a buzz around the Premier League and as much mutual respect. When Ronaldo was flying, when you were playing alongside him, I remember there was a lot of hatred towards him because he was so good, maybe his style, going down at free kicks, playing for Man United. But with Haaland...
Getting people sent off and winking at the...
That as well.
Yeah, he was a bit sly.
There doesn't seem to be that sort of... there doesn't seem to have been that frenzy for anyone else that I can remember. And the other thing that you picked up, that you mentioned, other than saying he might have a kid, which is a scary prospect, given the family...
Oh, he's got a good 20 years now.
The family
like watching
DNA.
a giraffe come out with it.
Yeah, but you made a really good point about what it's done to other players. I felt that a lot of the time, because of the expectations on City, those attacking midfielders were playing with stress to score.
Oh, Foden looks furious.
And you could actually visually see it. And when a wrong decision was made, there was a lot of scrutiny. And you could see it with Guardiola on the touchline as well. It's all well and good being more relaxed the way things are going now, but you can actually see it in Guardiola, and you can see it in those players that they look a little bit liberated, that a weight's been taken off their shoulders. And when you're seeing Grealish run inside and Bernardo Silva and his trickery and De Bruyne's audacious attempts at passes
keep going. It sounds great, I love it.
Get on the end of, it does make you think that things are slightly different. However, the one thing none of us have mentioned is what City do if he was to get injured. I know you said Alvarez is there, but it could change a lot.
You're right. Weirdly, and I'm not just trying to big up City for the sake, but I do think Alvarez would probably be near the top of the scoring charts if he's playing every week as well. Because when he has had games with minutes on the pitch, he's scored, and he's probably going to play. I think as we're recording this, City are about to play in the Champions League. He's probably going to play tonight and probably going to score as well. So he's not obviously Haaland, but I do think he's another little potential superstar.
Just want to finish with two lads on Foden, and does he play for England Hang on a second, forget you for 1 second. I know you're going to say he has to. I agree with you. Do you think Foden plays in the World Cup for England?
As in, do I think Gareth Southgate will play?
Yes. Yeah. Do you think Gareth Southgate starts him in the first games?
Yeah, I do. I think he's in possession of the position. We saw that from the last international break with the 2 Nations League games. I think he has come into a level of form that we've not seen him exhibiting for Manchester City and to an extent England at all. And when you look at his competition for those positions, so you've got Sterling, Saka, and then obviously Kane in that unit as well, Mason Mount. I think if we're going on what Gareth Southgate will do at this moment in time, I don't see how Foden doesn't start that first game against Iran.
That's where I'm at. Laurie?
Yeah, he has to. He's a special talent, isn't he? I mean, I was at the Etihad a couple of weeks ago, and it was a kind of wow moment, not only for Haaland and the way that the United players responded to him. You could tell that there was a bit of tension there. How's he going to move? How do we follow him? But also Foden. I mean, the way that he outstripped Malacia. I mean, I thought Malacia was supposed to be quick, but it's a 60-yard sprint, and he does him at the far post, and then also just the way he hits the ball. It's great to see, isn't it? From a kind of a football fan, just generally. So yeah, I think if he's fit, he has to be in that starting 11.
Last question on City, and it's just one to everybody. Does anybody see any chance that City won't win the league around this?
No.
There's a reason I said
Haaland getting injured is, but I don't. They still win the league.
The Haaland injury thing as well. I mean, Pep's mentioned it, hasn't he? Credit to the medical team, because he did have some problems at Dortmund last season. So
everyone has problems at Dortmund, though. That's the thing.
I suppose maybe that is one point, but you do, if you just
even if that happened, I mean, is there any
way?
way?
Like a roll. It doesn't seem like you can injure him. You've seen that clip of the guy chopping him, and he goes
yeah,
off.
It was twice. As well, wasn't it?
What can you do to stop this guy?
No, I do think Haaland. We're so lucky that he's scoring so many goals that he's only playing 68 minutes a game, and then we forget as well he's going to be sat with his feet up during the World Cup doing nothing. So he's going to be.
Hopefully, he gets dead fat.
In Manchester, he could. He definitely could. Right, let's move on to Manchester United. And Adam, where are we at? I take your point before about it didn't feel that bad. The reason I didn't feel it felt that bad, and I said it after the game, was that if they beat Everton, which we did, actually you think, I can accept that last weekend because of what happened. They're back on track again,
I also think if you look at we played Liverpool, Arsenal, City, we got 6 out of 9 points.
And you've quite wanted Man City to beat us in the last few seasons as well. You've wanted City to beat us in the last few years.
We haven't needed to want them now. Because
was it humbling, by the way? Did it feel like a humbling?
It didn't feel like a humbling. It just felt like, what is this ridiculous guy doing, just continuously scoring? It just felt...
I must admit, I felt it was more a case of what the hell am I watching with City than to be fair. I think most teams will get a good do. I mean, I'll be interested. To be honest, I say this. I actually think where City are playing Sunday is the one place that I think they could have problems because they've got something. They've got something in them. They've just got something in them that can just rise and just do something, and it can be a game that you lose in 5 minutes. You've lost it there in 5 minutes before. So I think Sunday's a massive test. But if they go there and do them on Sunday. I did feel the selection was probably wrong going into the Etihad. I thought Casemiro should have started. Why did you think that before? Did you think that before the game? Yeah, no, I said that before the game with McTominay because I felt Eriksen and Bruno. They left us a little bit because you got one sitting, you got Eriksen and Bruno looking to push forward. I think that left us a bit too open, and I think because we were playing well, the results were going well. I think Erik thought, let's go into this, we'll play our football, and I think eventually we just got beat by a better side. But watching Manchester United at the moment, I think I'm much happier seeing. We've not played for 90 minutes yet. No. But you are seeing glimpses of the football that Erik ten Hag wants to play. You see moves that go through the whole team. I think Lisandro Martinez, your mate Carragher, got that so wrong. I think he's not only is he very good defensively, won't be the first time, but also with the ball at his feet, is like an extra midfielder for us. He's able to pass the ball through the lines. I think he's been a huge addition to the team. And it just generally feels like we're building something and moving it into the right direction. I'm not going to get carried away at any point and think, we're going to do this or that this season. But we're heading in the right direction. And I think we need to enjoy it. The manager has impressed me, I have to say. I think he comes out of that transfer window, which was an absolute shocker. The handling of Ronaldo, the handling of Maguire, even Luke Shaw coming back in at the week. Good the other day. Even Luke Shaw coming back in, and to be fair, doing that and bringing him back in. Handling the 4-0 defeat at Brentford the way in which he did that week. I think I have to say he's very good in the press. He's pretty impressive, I think. He's very good in the press and the way he handles the press and speaks with them. You guys would have experienced it a little bit more, but I always feel he's got the right answer. Sometimes you used to get a United manager, things would be going well and they'd say something and you go, well, what was that? Why did he say that? Well, who's he having a dig at there and stuff? And you haven't really seen that from Erik ten Hag. It's all about the football. It's all about building the squad. I am worried by when the financial results came out, the Richard Arnold and that we're all talking about, there's not going to be any signings in the next window or maybe in the next... And that's worrying me a little bit because we need to continuously build. No, there isn't. And I think we need to continuously build. If we want Ten Hag to be a success, we can't just rely on what we have at the moment. Yes, we've got some good youngsters coming through, but we need to continue to back him and give him the support and give him the signings. And it's clear we still need one or two. I think Christian Eriksen's a fantastic signing. One of the best bargains we've had since Schmeichel's a couple of $100,000.
I haven't seen us sign someone that good.
Henrik Larsson was a free transfer.
Henrik Larsson, but he's only there for a few months.
Yeah.
Erik Ten Hag, press conferences, how are you finding him? Obviously, you're dealing with him on a weekly basis.
Yeah, I'm impressed, as Adam says. I mean, in pre-season, we were away, obviously, in Bangkok, Thailand and Australia, and we'd heard from the Ajax journalists, listen, he doesn't really give that much away. And certainly the first sit-down we had with him, we spoke to Melissa Reddy a little bit. She'd done him with Sky, and his first answer was so far so good to like a question that was like quite long and wanted a bit of exposition. Actually, he was all right with us. I don't know if that was because the cameras were off or he'd warmed up. And then since that point, I do feel like he's become more comfortable in his position and also wanting to express what he's trying to get from his players and send a few little messages, in what he's saying to other players. He doesn't sort of shirk calling them out, but he doesn't do it in a way perhaps like Ralph Rangnick would do, where he could do it because he was only there as an interim basis. He obviously has to bring them with him on this sort of journey. But no, I've been quietly impressed with it. I mean, even after the game on Sunday at Goodison Park, I sort of asked him a pretty open-ended question about Anthony, and his answer was, mainly positive, but also, no, he's got stuff to improve. He mentioned specifically defensive work, which I think is something that has been flagged. Also, as Paul Scholes mentioned, the kind of, does he cut in on his left foot too much? And he said, well, no, we have worked on it at Ajax. He can cross with his right foot, but clearly that still needs more work. So it's kind of detailed stuff that I think I quite like.
He also recognises the human side. I read an interview with McTominay the other day, and I think one of the things that Van Gaal and Mourinho, they were always stick but no carrot, and it was like, come on, you've got to realise that some of these lads, going through it sometimes, and you have to deal with different pressures of playing for Man United. And I think I was glad to hear that the human side of things, how's your family? Easy things to do, easy wins, but you keep people on side doing that. And then when you are calling them out in the press, they know that actually this guy is there for me, he's got my back, so maybe what he's saying is true. The one thing I was disappointed with, you mentioned it there, he's handled the Ronaldo thing so well. And then we got like Rio and Kido coming out. I love them both, but it's like you're putting this additional pressure on him to play Cristiano Ronaldo when actually we're a much better team without Ronaldo at the moment. And it hurts me to say it, because I love Ronnie, he's the greatest player I've ever seen, but we are a better team without him leading the line.
You've seen Messi play, sorry.
Ten Hag seems comfortable with that, though, I think. I think he's OK with that external noise.
You know what it is? It's like you don't expect it from people that should have the club. Like, you should be able to see that United are moving in the right direction. Why do you need to drag this?
But they've also got that relationship, right, with Ronaldo, where they want to defend him.
I think they genuinely think that there isn't a Manchester United centre forward at this moment in time who will score more goals than Ronaldo and who will do better than Ronaldo.
But United will score more goals with
as a collective, you mean?
With a different centre forward, I think. And I think it's a shame he's injured all the time, but we've seen 4 halves of football from Anthony Martial. He's got 3 goals, 2 assists, and he's bringing all these players into play. I just rather see us focus on the collaborative rather than always going for the easy headlines, and because that's what United have done well of avoiding over the last couple of months, you know what I mean? And you just know as soon as a result goes wrong or a few go wrong, which it will, because we're still learning, it's going to be up and down, you just know they're going to be out again.
That's part of the course of Ronaldo, though, isn't it? If he's there, you're going to get that. So I think you have to.
But he does seem to be handling things quite professionally himself. Like, he doesn't seem to be being a distraction, which...
He's changed, hasn't he, Ronaldo? I think certainly when the window was still open and he wanted to leave, I think he's, the Champions League scoring records and maybe even winning it, that's in his mind, for sure. I think he was a difficult character around Carrington, sort of perhaps cutting a bit of an isolated figure. I think since the window closed, he's kind of switched his mind a bit more onto, right, well, I'm here now. I've got to,
It's not World Cup to prepare for. I think he'll be selfish in thinking about that.
He will be now. I mean, his focus for that will be massive. But he did say, didn't he, a couple of weeks before the transfer window ended, that you'll hear the truth in a couple of weeks. Yeah. Has that ever come to you, or has his team ever come to you with that?
Well, you've not gotten over that? Coming out with him?
You need him on, get him on Monday Night Football or after the game. Get him in the studio.
We don't know what happens behind the scenes, so maybe it's another situation that's been quite well handled by Erik Ten Hag. And from an outsider's perspective, and I know the hierarchy at Man United don't ever really get much credit, but it seems to be a really good appointment so far, an encouraging appointment of Ten Hag. They tried to go biggest name in football with Mourinho, and Van Gaal was a big name within the managerial world. David Moyes, a recommendation of Sir Alex Ferguson. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, it seemed more a marriage of convenience. And then Ralph Rangnick, let's go fashionable. When I was reporting on the stories around the managerial pursuit, the fans were resoundingly in favour of Erik Ten Hag. And we shouldn't underestimate the knowledge of the public and how much research goes on these days. A lot of people had watched his Ajax team and his way of coaching. We'd heard a lot from people who had worked with him, under him, around him. He was in the Bayern system when Pep was first-team manager. And I just look at the decisions that have been made so far. I look at the response to adversity after the Brentford defeat where, I was being told by people close to the club and the first team that if the players are going to turn on anyone this time, it's not going to be the manager. They're going to go above that and they're going to throw executives under the bus. I don't know, but not Ten Hag. And I was like, that was a strange thing to hear. And then when a couple of days later, stories came out, I think it was via Laurie, that he had actually done the running session with the players. He had gone into the trenches with them. He hadn't just sent them on a session. And it's those little things that have built this bond early doors. And you're seeing a rebirth by the looks of it. Again, early days from Marcus Rashford. And you talk about the striker position. But actually, if he starts to deliver and is better for the chemistry of the whole team, then maybe United will be better as a collective. And I think that all comes down to Ten Hag so far. However, I would say that he will want more players in to fulfil his vision and his aim. And he's not done in that transfer market. No. And I think that's going to be crucial. You mentioned
look what they tried to do to him in the summer. Before we had those few bad results, they wanted Arnautovic and Rabiot and all that. And then they're very reactive. They're never proactive. Forget that. And that's the problem. Yeah. They never will be proactive.
He was searching for character. And if the target was the wrong one, then
it's a big couple of weeks, though, isn't it? United have got Newcastle,
so busy these next couple
Chelsea,
of weeks, so many games.
I think Tottenham, is it?
Yeah.
Newcastle, Chelsea, Tottenham in the next 3 weeks.
Those 3 games are huge.
They're huge games, those. And I think that'll define sort of the mood going into the World Cup period for United. But there's no doubt that, and it's something I want to ask you about, because certainly a month or two ago, the ownership, the Glazer out stuff was huge at that time. I think the actual
We've got Doc coming, by the way.
I think the fact that Manchester United didn't play for 4 weeks actually was helpful. Didn't have that league game for 3 or 4 weeks. Do you think that? I know there is still the protests. I know there is still the anger from the fans, but it does seem to have sort of quietened down a little bit at this moment. But the anger's still there underneath, isn't it?
The protests have been every single home game.
Yeah.
So inside the ground, obviously, everyone's behind the manager. There'll still be the anti-Glazer chants, and long may they continue until they're gone. But obviously, the fans are happier with the team, so it seems, the press report on it less and all these kind of things. The protests still happen every single game, and hats off to the organisers.
There was a banner in the Goodison Park away end on Sunday.
Oh yeah, I know they're still going on. I'm not saying, but just seeing the noise. The noise is less. Obviously,
because fans are happier. Obviously, I think it seems like a happier place to be, but that's still there. And I think if the manager's not backed in the transfer windows and he's not given the support that he needs, then there'll be even further protests. And
that's the big thing coming up, isn't it? As you've touched on, the investor call, they made it very plain that they spent over budget in the summer, and I think they did react to the bad results, and they thought we need Erik Ten Hag to work. This is exactly that. And we need to work now. So we can't sort of buy a player that can't go straight into the team. So that's why Casemiro came in, experienced. Anthony was one that obviously Erik Ten Hag very much pushed for. So, but that then means that in January, I don't know, I'd be surprised if they spend
we need a striker because we can't rely on
those bids for Casemiro and Anthony went in 24, 40 hours prior to the Liverpool game, where they thought that ultimately you'd been beaten 4-0 against Brentford, Liverpool coming to Old Trafford, that was going to be the sort of graveyard game.
But then obviously, that impressed me as well, because people were talking about De Boer and stuff, and I was thinking, oh my.
Yeah,
I never ever felt like that, but you knew the wave of pressure was coming if we were going to lose 3 on a spin.
That's why I admire Ten Hag. He's clearly got resilience. He was obviously, he must have been feeling that, but he sort of stuck to his principles.
He did.
And the running thing, I think, is a great little story, because it's kind of, as a manager, I feel like certainly in the initial stage of taking over a club, you kind of might need to do something a bit mad.
But that could have gone badly wrong as well. That type of gimmick, it could have been seen as a gimmick. Yeah. If he'd lost against Liverpool, could have gone badly wrong, couldn't it? It was a risk, but it paid off.
Varane's huge as well. I try and look at it at the positive side and adding Varane in there. Obviously, who he's replaced was going through a bad time at the time. Harry Maguire's hasn't got the form at the moment, and could argue might not be good enough, but Varane is just a class above everybody, and I think he's really improved this season. He managed him well in the summer, bringing him back. He didn't rush him into pre-season training. And I think he's getting the best out of him at the moment.
And credit, that was a good piece of recruitment. It was an opportunity that Real Madrid probably weren't too dissatisfied with, but when fit, United have got themselves one of the best centre-halves in the world. But we shouldn't sort of paper over the cracks of certain recruitment issues. That's been a theme of what we've talked about today. Because the Antony signing, from pretty much everyone you speak to, could have been done months earlier for far lower cost. And when you say that the money's not there for the signings in the upcoming window, then that sort of expenditure, Casemiro's deal, people say around up to £80 million all in and with everything included, for a player that Real Madrid were quite content to move on. I thought he was a class act.
So we could have saved the money and got Hakpo or whoever else who wanted.
I think one of the most fascinating situations going forward, John Murta, the team around him, Richard Arnold as the new chief executive, is how they manage these markets, because they literally cannot keep affording to spend that level of money.
Right, let's finish off on United like we have with the other teams. Where are they finishing? Heart or head?
I think we'll finish in the top 4.
Top 4.
I'm more confident in Ten Hag getting... Like, if we have a bad result, which still happen, because it's going to be up and down, I'm confident in the ability to recover and not let it knock us or affect us. So I think we'll get results. But if there's an continuous injury to Anthony Martial, and what happens with Ronaldo after the World Cup, that could cause... Because we haven't got an out-and-out striker. I think Rashford's... All his goals may have come from the left, or when he's played with Ronaldo or Martial. So I think we'll need a striker. I wouldn't mind Ivan Toney, you know. Bring him in, man.
Good shout.
Get him on your
United.
course.
No, I don't want an explanation on United from a City fan to be 5th or 6th.
Yes.
All right.
Do you want an explanation why? Or...
Yeah, he wants one now.
No.
Because the other teams are better. That's the simple answer.
It just come down to that, doesn't it? Who drops out then?
Yeah,
City,
I think Chelsea better.
Arsenal were all sort of thinking they might maintain it. Maybe Arsenal then. Tottenham, Conte. I know they're not playing that great. It's played, Chelsea, Liverpool, and United.
So who's in your top 4 then? Because you said City, Arsenal.
I think Chelsea possibly. I'm a big fan of Potter. Yeah. I think he'll need a while to get settled there, and I think Liverpool possibly miss out. And again, I'm being super optimistic.
So
United and Spurs.
So City, Arsenal, United.
United top. City. Spurs,
Arsenal.
Right, Laurie.
I think they might just miss out because the squad depth, if you peel away some of the crucial... If Christian Eriksen gets injured, for example, I think that really changes... He's played basically every game. I think that changed the dynamic of what the team can do.
Would that be an underperformance, or would that be expected with the money that's been spent?
I wouldn't mind 5th.
You think 5th's acceptable?
If we show room for improvement, and you never know, you could go and win the Europa League or something. But I wouldn't panic if we didn't get top 4, because this guy... I think we finally got the guy. We just need to give him time. Like, look what we were talking about Arteta.
There's good managers everywhere, isn't there? That's the thing. Like, there really are. And by the way, you noticed Ten Hag, Arteta, Pep's boys, proteges.
Oh, I knew someone was going to say something like that.
It's true. It's still true.
But you might want Arteta back when Pep's gone.
Pippa, Paul, United. Not that you care that much.
No. Oh, do you care? I care massively that Manchester United fall flat on the face. 5th. But that's predicated entirely around Liverpool getting back to a sort of similar level. Yeah. Honestly, I think it's a bit of a crapshoot between Spurs, whether Potter can stabilise Chelsea consistently enough, and then Manchester United. It should be a close shot for the top 2.
Originally, I thought it would be 4th would be between Chelsea, Arsenal, and United, and now I'm going more towards it's between Chelsea, United, and Liverpool for that 4th spot.
Yeah, I think it feels like that. Yeah.
Pippa?
I can't quite call it from what I've seen so far this season. There's so much room for improvement. I know they can improve. I want to say 5th, but I get that to Liverpool. So I think maybe the same position as last
6th
year.
Then?
Yeah.
6th.
Funny that, because we beat you this season.
Oh, wow. One.
David, to finish up on United.
I think the money is all relative these days, and Liverpool spent up to 100 million on Darwin Núñez, and we're not sort of asking that question of where should they finish based on that. And therefore, I think it's going to be an improved season for United, a step in the right direction. I think they may just be in that mix with Liverpool slightly outside the top 4, 5th, 6th. And so, the current trajectory, and I'll be proved completely wrong, is maybe United just missing out on the top 4, but having a better season that keeps them on this positive path.
Well, the end of an overlap Fan Debate Extra, where United doesn't look like they're finishing in the top 4, according to our panel, which means it's another tough season. But I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe and join us again. And thank you very much to our guests. Hi everyone, it's Gary Neville here. We've got some unbelievably exciting news on the Overlap. After our live show in Manchester last year, we've decided to take the Overlap on tour. On stage with me will be Roy Keane, Jamie Carragher, Josh Denzel and Kelly Cates. Tickets are available now. Make sure you come down and watch us, but remember, only if you like.
Let's get it on.